Hi all, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. So we had a week off the UFC last weekend, which doesn't seem to come around too often anymore. I need to check whether they've actually increased the schedule. We used to get about 40 events a year, but it feels like we're getting more now because the breaks just seem to be less and less. And might also explain why we're starting to get some watered down cards. The card a couple of weeks ago was pretty low level for a UFC card. I think there was Bellator the same weekend, and I remember thinking the Bellator card was perhaps on paper a bit stronger. There's another Bellator card this weekend. I have to say the UFC card's probably better this time, but it's still a watered down UFC card. It's still, there's not a lot of big names on there. Some people that perhaps, previously wouldn't have classed as UFC caliber. So it's making things a little bit tricky on the betting front. I've got to be honest with these cards because this is a card like the one, so not the last card, because I think the last card we had was it a pay-per-view? That was a solid enough card, but the card before was a weak one where I said when I done the podcast, from a betting perspective, it was a dog or pass card. I expect a lot of dogs to hit, and this card's the same. Now, there's a lot of close lines, but I'm going to be erring with a lot of the dogs on this particular card because I just think some of the fights are hard to get a read on. The ones where I feel like you can get a decent enough read on, it just seems like a close fight. So you've just got to go with the dogs in these instances. And I've started to highlight how many dogs I'm picking per card and like what percentage I'm getting right. And when I'm saying it's a dog card and a lot of dogs are going to win it, it's been happening. So I expect that to happen this time as well. Just to remind everyone, I do offer a premium service whereby we offer pre-betting tips and live betting tips to members. You can go to prommabetting.com to view the packages, weekly, monthly, 6 monthly and yearly. Most guys jump on the yearly package. That will cover you for 12 months of betting on all MMA events, all live betting, including boxing. All bets are tracked, guys, as trackers on the website, on the homepage. You will see free icons. As soon as you go into the website, you can click on the free icons, take you to all the trackers. Everything is tracked, everything transparent. I will post bet slips and show stakes on Twitter as well. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, it's at Pro MMA Betting. But premium service is available, so any questions on the service, feel free to DM me on Twitter or drop any questions in the caption area below this video. But we'll dive into the card. We'll work our way, as we always do, from the bottom of the card up to the top. It looks like I was working on the assumption that Razak was on the card, but I've just brought up the card and I can't see him on there, so it looks like that fight's been pulled from the card for whatever reason. Trevin Jones' new opponent has literally just been announced. I haven't done tape on him yet, so what I'll do is the Trevin Jones fight, I will just put up my pick once I've looked at the tape, basically. So first fight on the card, we've got Sasha Palatnikov taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. Look, I'm not sure either guy's UFC caliber. Sasha came in, got a big win as a big underdog, had a very tough first round against one of the Kosi brothers, survived. Kosi gassed out basically, trying to finish him, and Sasha took over. He's coming off a loss to Impa in his last fight. Impa moved down to 170 for the first time. It was a competitive first round, but Sasha got caught behind the ear at the start of round 2. Made him lose his footing, and Impa just jumped on his back and choked him out. Ramiz, you'll probably all remember his UFC debut. It was pretty brutal. His ear was hanging off towards the end of the third round. The referee stepped in and stopped the fight. He was losing the fight anyway. I had him 2 rounds down. He was losing round 3. He was getting that struck by Max Griffin. There's no shame in that. Max Griffin's a decent enough fighter, but just Ramiz's strategy was just weird in that fight for me. Normally, you go and watch tape of him on the regional scene. He will use a lot of wrestling. That fight, he just stood. I don't know whether he just thought Max was too good a wrestler, Max was too strong, or maybe he's just concerned about his cardio, because you do watch the fights on the regional scene and he does slow down. He has the fight with, I can't remember the guy's name, it comes to me in a minute, where he he has some success early on wrestling, and he just ends up slowing down, and he just gasses to the point where he's just getting picked apart on the feet. He still manages to force some takedowns, but he really struggled with his top control in that fight. So I wonder how good his top control is. Sasha did get up from under Impa in round 1. It's a tough fight to call. Is Ramiz going to wrestle, or is he going to elect just to stand again? You'd think he'd wrestle here because he definitely will be able to take Sasha down. Whether he can keep him down, I don't know. On the feet, I don't know, maybe the edge to Sasha. It's a real tough fight to call. I've really not got a strong lean on it. Based on the way the odds are, I probably lean towards Sasha just because he's the underdog, but he's barely an underdog, so I wouldn't be betting it at the current line. We're talking like, plus 105. I'm not seeing the value there personally. I just don't know what to expect from Ramiz after the Max Griffin fight. It's left me a bit befuddled with regards to him. So I'll go with Sasha, but I'm not touching the fight from a betting perspective. I'll sit back, watch it, see what game plan Ramiz comes in with from Fortis. Does he go back to his wrestling? If he does his cardio hold up? Sasha's, he had a tough 3-round fight against Kosi, or nearly went 3 rounds. He's been 5 rounds on the regional circuit, so he's probably got the cardio advantage. So I'll just sit out and watch that one and see what transpires. It's a tough fight to get a read on. Roosevelt Roberts, Ignacio, Bahamondes next. Another fight. It's a tough one to call. Roosevelt Roberts, to me, he's fallen a little bit into the stunt puller stroke flake category. Lost to Jim Miller, got armbarred, and then he lost to Kevin Kroom, got guillotined. I thought he'd been cut, or assumed he had, but like I said earlier, I don't know whether the UFC are, they're walking down the cards at the moment. Are they, just kind of bringing back people just to fill out the cards? I don't know. The Kevin Kroom one actually got changed to a no contest. Maybe that saved him. But yeah, they were not good performances. Round 1 losses there, back to back. He beat Brock Weaver, who's just not UFC caliber. He got the win over Yakovlev, which was a decent enough performance. What he does struggle with, Roosevelt, is he doesn't like pressure. He doesn't like being backed up. Not something he's comfortable with at all. He has got some decent boxing. He's got a dangerous guillotine if you shoot in, leave your head out. And he has got some wrestling chops. We saw that against Vinc Pichel. Ultimately ended up losing and getting out wrestled by Vinc Pichel. But, he did take Vinc Pichel down in round 1. So, he's an interesting prospect. But the last couple of fights definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. Bahamondes. Look, this guy's got a great frame for 155. But I'm not sure if he should be at 155. I think maybe he should be at 170. He got hurt badly by Makdessi in his last fight. Never really recovered. It's not a great sign when you're getting hurt by Makdessi, who's he's not known for his power in his hands. I just wonder if the cut just takes too much out of him. I think he missed weight as well. Let me just have a look. Yeah, he did miss weight. Came in marginally over. I think he should go to welterweight, but here he is. He's back at lightweight. He can't use his length. There's another fighter coming up that similar, just can't use their length, and he's another one. He just ends up getting dragged into these close, like he looked good on the Contender Series against Edson Gomez, but no idea where they found that guy from. You go and watch the Chris Brown fight. I think he had a solid first round, and then it just becomes a messy, dragged out affair. Makdessi, he started well against Makdessi, and then he got hurt, and then he's got another loss on the regional scene to Salvador. I just don't know what his ceiling is. I really don't. I just think this is a fight that's going to be close. It's tough to pick a winner. I've got to say, it's tough to pick a winner. I just see it being a close competitive fight. I've got to go with a dog again. Bahamondes is anywhere from plus 120 to plus 125. I've probably got to go with him. I think it will be a close competitive fight. I think it goes 3 rounds. So my lean is Bahamondes. Let me just look at the overs on this one. The over 2.5 is sitting at about -160. I don't think that's bad because I do see this fight hitting the scorecards. Ignacio's not, his last couple of wins outside of that guy they gave him on Contender Series are decision wins. Roosevelt, Roberts. I mean, he got the stoppage win over Brock Weaver. Just trying to remind myself, he caught Daryl Halter as well, I think, with the guillotine. Yakovlev went to a decision. So did Thomas Gifford. Tough Thomas Gifford is. But yeah, I just think this goes 3 rounds. So perhaps the over, if you don't want to get yourself caught up in, I think -160. I think it should be that. So perhaps the over there on that particular fight. Next on the card, we have William Knight, Fabio, Cherant. Look, William Knight is sitting at about minus. He's different price on different books, but I think he's anywhere from like -200 to -250. You just can't lay that on Knight. He's not well put together as a mixed martial artist. He's very physical, physically strong, but he does a lot of things wrong. He's kind of chin straight up there when he's getting hit. His takedowns mainly come from trips. He gets by a lot on his physical power. And Fabio Cherant, I've done the tape on Fabio, and his takedown defense is definitely not great. Watched a few fights of his, and when people wanted takedowns, they got them. Like he fought the guy he beat over 5 rounds, whose name's escaping me at this moment. I'll bring it up in a second. He only went for a takedown once. That was towards the end of the first round, and he got Cherant down very easily. Alonzo Manyfield, we saw, took him down easily. Now, he's meant to have a good guillotine, which he will threaten with, but I think what he should be doing is actually working on defending the takedown as opposed to going for the guillotine every single time, which is costing him the takedown. So Knight is going to be looking to close the distance here and force takedowns, I would have thought. Look, I can't. It's the kind of card where I feel obligated to just pick every single underdog. But I'm struggling to pick Cherant because I'm just not high on him. Myron Dennis, that was it. Myron Dennis, he fought in LFA. It was a 5-rounder, and Dennis got him down at the end of the first round. It was only takedown. I think Dennis attempted the whole fight, but he got it easily enough. And then the fight before that against UG, I think he actually defended all of UG's takedowns attempts, but there was a lot of time that he spent with his back stuck against the fence, with G laying on him or leaning on him. So there's definitely an area of weakness there that I just think Knight's going to exploit. So I'm going to pick William Knight. I definitely would advise you not to bet him. He's just not well put together for me. He got that win over Alexa Comor, but I don't know what Alexa was doing in that fight. He was like playing William Knight's game. He was just going into the clinch. I think it's because he had good success in round 1, Alexa. Actually in the clinch. He won round 1 in the clinch, and then he kept going to it after that. But 2 and 3, he was just losing the battle. I think he probably slowed down a little bit. And Knight's actually got really good cardio. You'd expect someone like him to slow down with his how muscular he is, but his cardio is actually not too bad. But I'm going to go with him here. I don't think Fabio... I mean, again, these two just are not really UFC caliber. Let's be real. But the line's awful. I can't fault anyone if they're having a stab at Fabio at those odds, but I'm just sticking with my gut here. I just think Knight's going to end up getting a takedown and probably forcing a finish. So I'll go with Knight, but it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. This card is awful. The more as I'm going through these fights and looking at them, they're just a mess. We've got Malecki next, taking on Josiane Nunes. So Nunes is making her UFC debut. But yeah, we haven't seen for a little while. I think it's been a year or so. She is extremely tall and long for the weight division. Apparently a strong Muay Thai background, but she isn't great. She's big, she's used to her advantage. Like Macedo struggled just when she was shooting in for takedowns, gassed. She just kept ending up on the bottom because Bia's got strong hips. She is big for the weight class. and it's ultimately how she won her debut as well against Duda Santana. She had a rough first round, but the second round she used her strong hips to defend the takedown, ended up on top and pounded her out. But she can't use her length at all. Now you're going to look at these two, especially at the weigh-ins and so forth. The height difference is going to be ridiculous. I think it's a 10-inch reach advantage, but Bia can't fight long. It doesn't mean anything. Macedo was outstriking her until she gassed, and even in round 3, when Macedo was gassed out of her mind, she was still landing flush, heavy shots on Bia. I'm not high on Bia at all, but I mean, it's been 17, 18 months since we last saw her. But I tried to look on her Instagram to see where she's been training, but it looked to me like she'd been back home in Sweden, but I don't know that for sure. Nunes is a UFC debut, Brazilian. She's a Brazilian slugger. She comes in and she comes to brawl. She's going to get in your face and she's going to fight. I couldn't find her last fight, so last fight I found from her is about 20 months ago. So you've got to assume there's going to be some kind of improvements. But a weak takedown defense, but I've never seen Bia go for a takedown. But she's very aggressive on the feet. The odds are Nunes is plus 135, which I'm picking Nunes based on them odds. I think this should be more like a pick and fight. I think Nunes is going to come to fight. She's going to get in Bia's face. If her cardio holds up, I would not be shocked if she manages to slug her way to a decision win here, because Bia just can't keep people at length. She can't do it. And the problem is, when you're tall and long and someone does get inside, it's hard for you then to land your shots, because you've got long, gangly limbs, and it's hard to hit someone on the inside when you've got long limbs. So I think Nunes is going to be a right pain for Bia, and if Nunes' cardio holds up, I think she can win this fight. So at plus 135, I'm going with Nunes. Now I could have egg on my face here, because Nunes has fought no one. Fought girls on the Brazilian regional scene, and the size difference is going to be huge here. But I can just go with what I've seen, and I just think this kind of style, as long as the cardio holds, presents problems for Bia. So I'm going with Nunes. Next, Brian Kelleher taking on Domingo Pilarte. I really wanted to fade Pilarte, but I can't bet Brian Kelleher at minus 175. He's the kind of guy, for me anyway, I can only look at betting him as an underdog. Pilarte, he's not had a good time in the UFC. Now, he looked decent on Contender Series. He beat Morales, who we saw the other week, who's a decent enough fighter. He was doing well, and then at the end of the first round, he got caught and hurt, and he nearly got finished. But he came out in the second round. He managed to get a takedown, get on Morales' back and choke him out. Then he made his UFC debut against Kelleher. There was a little bit of controversy around the decision, but it could have gone either way. He did win the third round, but the second round is the swing round, and it could have gone either way. But it was a grappling heavy affair basically, and then he's coming off a very quick loss. I think that's been overturned against Jerdy Newsom. He got KO'd early in that fight. For all intents and purposes, we haven't seen Pilarte properly for a couple of years now. So, you never know. There could be improvements, but he is 31. So, age is always a factor in improvements, or normally is a factor. So, the older you are, the less likely you are to make these huge leaps. So, whether we see a whole new version, I don't know. Brian, he's a veteran. He's a tough guy. He's tough to put away on the feet. He's game. He'll fight. I have to go with Kelleher here, just based on strength of schedule, experience. He's been fighting more regular. Pilarte is probably fighting for his job here. His confidence is going to be low. He's coming off back-to-back losses. There's a crazy, like the Bia fight, there's a crazy reach differential here. I think it's possibly like 10 inches, but double checking. I'm sure it is something like 10 inches. So Brian's, probably wise to come in and look to take Pilarte down, maybe try and grapple him. But it is a hard fight to get a read on, because you look at it on paper and the length difference, the reach difference. You could see how on the feet Domingo can cause problems for Brian, but I think Brian will come in and go for the takedowns, which I think he can get. He's got decent enough takedowns when he goes for them, and I think he'll probably end up going the grappling route here, I would have thought. So I'm going to pick Brian here, even though I wouldn't bet him as a favourite here. -175. He's the type of guy, if I'm going to bet him, I bet him as a dog, but I'll go with Kelleher. Last fight in the preliminary card, we've got Austin Lingo taking on Luis Saldana. So Luis Saldana is coming off a extremely controversial decision win. I'm not sure how he got that decision win, to be honest, against Jordan Griffin. I think Jordan Griffin was very unlucky to lose that decision. It always interests me how the public think and how the odds makers think here, because if Luis Saldana did rightly lose that fight, I bet he wouldn't be a -130, 35 favourite here. I think it would at least be a pick'em. Maybe even Lingo a slight favourite. It's just funny when you look at stuff like that, because he didn't deserve that decision. He likes to fight long. He likes to fight on the outside. Griffin got in his face, got his grappling going. The grappling won't be a threat here from Lingo. He will get the stand-up fight he wants. But I didn't like how he dealt with the pressure from Griffin. Griffin, he looked very allergic to pressure when Griffin came forward and got in his face. He didn't like it. He likes to use his length, Saldana. He likes space. But Lingo's another guy he is very boxing orientated, but he's aggressive. He's going to come, and he needs to come forward. That is clearly the weakness for Saldana. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm not overly confident. I think this should be more like a pick'em line though. Lingo, he's coming off a good win, albeit against an overmatched opponent, but you go back through Saldana's record and it's very patchy. He's reeled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 wins in a row. But it's like, who's he beaten? He's not really fought anyone. You can say the same for Austin Lingo, but yeah, Saldana he came into the UFC just on a bit of hype. But Vince Murdoch, who he beat on Contender Series, just he isn't good. I remember taping Vince Murdoch, watching him struggle in fights over in the Indian MMA promotion, like struggling with their fighters. So I think Lingo here, if he comes in, he trains out of Fortis. He's going to be aggressive. His cardio is a bit of a concern. Has slowed down in a couple of fights that I've watched. But he's going to come out and he's going to put the heat on Saldana. So, I think it should be more of a pick'em line. The money is coming in on Lingo a little bit, because he was at +140 at one point. He's now down to about +105. So it doesn't surprise me that the line's coming down and it's becoming, in my opinion, more accurate. But just purely as he's sitting as the underdog still, I'll go Lingo. But I think if you got in at the +135, +140 kind of area, I think it's a decent enough bet, albeit it's one I'm not overly confident in. It would be a value play, as they call it. So main card, I said earlier, Trevin Jones, new opponent's just been announced. Haven't done tape yet, so I will put up my pick once I've done the tape. Then we've got flyweights. Pantoja's taking on Brandon Royval. This is a good fight. I wanted to like Pantoja, but my concern with Pantoja is his gas tank. He really slowed down against Askarov. Very high-paced fight. He slowed down. I've seen him slow down in other fights in the past. Last time out, he got the fight he wanted, a slow pace or a slower-paced fight. When he's dictating the pace, he's comfortable, Pantoja. But Royval is a madman. He's going to come out at 100 miles an hour. He's going to set a very, very high pace. Now, Royval, he's a risk taker. He will spin. He's going to give opportunities for Pantoja to grab the body lock and take his back. And obviously, if Pantoja can do that, he can slow the fight right down. He can control position for a few minutes. They're the openings Pantoja probably needs to exploit here, just to slow the fight down. If he can get Royval down, Royval's takedown defense isn't great, but Pantoja's not known for overly pursuing takedowns, but he's got decent enough takedowns when he goes for them. But I think if there is an opening, Royval gets overly aggressive on the feet, or as I said, spins and leaves his back so he can take the body lock, I think Pantoja will be wise to just take him down, just control position for a few minutes, try and get his back, just slow the pace of the fight down. On the feet, Royval's going to be in his face. He fights at 100 miles an hour. He's really entertaining to watch. Had a good fight with Kelleher France. And the Brandon Moreno fight, Moreno was in control, but his shoulder popped out. So I hope that issue's been sorted, because the way that Mark Montoya fixed his shoulder at the end of the fight suggests that it's obviously an ongoing issue. So I hope it's fully healed, and I don't think he's had surgery or anything though. So I hope he's had the required physiotherapy, etc. So hopefully keep it in place, because it's a little bit of a worry as a bettor if it pops out mid-fight. But yeah, if Pantoja doesn't slow down, he's going to win this fight. I think he's a level above Royval, but as we've seen so many times in mixed martial arts, you can be the better fighter. If your gas tank goes, that don't mean jack. So that's the worry here. Even though I do feel Pantoja's a level above, if he does slow down, there's not a worse place to be than stuck in that octagon when you're gassing. And Royval won't slow down. He can go hard for 3 rounds. So that gave me hesitation, but I'm still going to pick Pantoja just because I feel he's a level above Brandon Royval. But I'm not betting him. I can't bring myself to bet him here as a -170 favourite with the gas tank issues against someone like Brandon Royval, who could definitely exploit that with the ferocious pace he sets. So I'll go with Pantoja, probably a decision. Don't see him knocking him out, and I think he can survive on the ground against Pantoja. Let's just see what Pantoja's decision line is. It's probably not great. Pantoja by decision. Oh, it's not bad actually. Pantoja decision +1. I mean, few different, anywhere between +160 to +180. I'm seeing it's better than I thought it was going to be actually. I don't think that's a bad play, because Royval is tough. He obviously got the Marino loss, but that was his shoulder popping out. Just seeing if he's ever been finished. He went 5 with Casey Kenny from memory, where he got wrestled for 5 rounds. I'm inclined to, if I wanted to bet Pantoja, I'd be more inclined to maybe take his decision line. Let me just double check. He's not been finished. Yeah, he's never been finished outside the discolated shoulder. So I don't think that's a bad line on the decision actually for Pantoja. Next fight on the card, we have Vinc Pichel, Austin Hubbard. Oh, another not an easy fight to call. Austin Hubbard for me has the advantage on the feet. Vinc Pichel is a bit of a grinder. He's probably going to look to try and get Hubbard down and keep him down. Vinc Pichel has had another year out. He's had a lot of injury problems. He's been fairly inactive over the last few years. He's like 38 years of age now. But he is a gamer. Austin Hubbard has this horrible problem with winning round 1. I don't think he's won a round 1 in the UFC. Even his win against Max, so he stopped in the 2nd round. He lost round 1. His fight against the Canadian chap that he won a 3-round decision in, he lost round 1. He just has this problem. He's never won round 1 in the UFC. It's a big issue. He's got to start quicker. You can't be coming back from a deficit every fight. He is well trained. He trains out of Team Elevation. You can see he's well rounded. He doesn't excel anywhere, but he's well rounded. He's got decent takedown defense, and I say his takedown defense isn't great, to be fair, but he's hard to hold down. We saw that in the fight against Madsen, who we'll talk about in a minute. Madsen has hit something like 10 takedowns in that fight because Hubbard just kept getting back to his feet. He's not easy to hold down. And for me, Vinc Pichel is the type of guy that I don't foresee Vince going out and trying to take someone down 5, 6, 7 times a round. I think if he'll go for a takedown or two, but if he can't keep you down, I don't think he'll overly pursue it. I think he will, be content to stand for stretches. And I give Hubbard the advantage, but he's got to put his foot down, and it's a difficult thing to trust with Austin Hubbard, is putting his foot down. The lines come down to a pick'em. Hubbard was up at, I think he was like plus 130, plus 140 area. So, I'm not surprised Hubbard's been bet, especially if there are question marks over Vince. As I said, age. He's had another layoff. I don't know if he's been injured again, but, he probably has. Probably why he's had another year out. He's got that grindy style, and Hubbard is tough to hold down. So, people probably thinking Hubbard can get back to his feet and go to work on the feet. At a pick'em, it's a hard fight to split and find value. I didn't mind Hubbard's decision though. I looked at it the other day at plus 200. I don't see him finishing Vince. I don't see Vince finishing Hubbard, but plus 200 for decision for Hubbard. I thought that was the value play on that fight. At a pick'em line, I don't see any value. But just for the sake of making a pick, I'll go with Austin Hubbard, but he's got to win round one. Come on, don't do this to yourself every time. You've got to start quicker. Next, this card is awful. Chase Sherman against Parker Porter. Look, I guess I'll go with my gut here, and I'll pick Chase Sherman just based on his durability. The guy is tough. But there's no way I'm laying minus 200 on Chase Sherman. I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's heavyweight. Parker Porter comes in and cracks him. It would not shock me. But I'm not laying the minus 200 for me on Chase Sherman. Just a no-no. So I'll go with Sherman on my gut. But I am not betting that. I'm not doing it. Let's just see what his inside the distance line is. Chase Sherman inside the distance or by KO. Plus 115 KO. That's not great, is it? Plus 105 inside the distance. So obviously, guys, take inside the distance, not KO, just in case. Co-main event is Guida taking on Mark Madsen. So Mark Madsen's an Olympic medalist. I think he got silver in Greco. Transitioned over to MMA. He's up there in age though. I think he's 37 now, so he's made the transition fairly late. He is what he is. Look, he's an Olympian. He's obviously got that tough mindset, but he is what he is. He's a wrestler in MMA. That's he's trying to develop his striking and whatnot, but he's basically going to be a wrestler in MMA. Let's be real. The sport now is. It's not like it was back in the day where you could just come over from being a wrestler and come in and automatically almost succeed. Especially at Mark's age in the lightweight division, it's going to be tough against all these young bucks. He got that win over Hubbard last time out. Dominated him the first couple of rounds of his wrestling, but he did struggle with the top control and he did slow down in round 3. And he was in a little bit of trouble in round 3 in that fight. Guida is like 40. He's been around forever. Used to fight down at 145. He's up at 155. Look, the guy's cardio is still insane. The guy just doesn't slow down. Now, this is, if he's going to win this fight, it's going to be by out cardioing Mark Madsen. Mark's probably going to start fairly well with his wrestling. The key for Clay is he's just got to make Mark work. He can't concede position on the bottom. He doesn't want to give Mark minutes on top. He just needs to make him work. This is the hard area of this fight to get a read on because you've got to go back years to see Clay Guida on the bottom. Like I went back and watched the Chad Mendes fight. I had a quick scan through. Chad hit a couple of takedowns in that fight. The Dennis Bermudez fight. Dennis actually finished the fight with a body lock takedown. So a takedown right up Mark Madsen's streak, being a Greco guy. And straight into a rear naked choke. But then you look at Guida, and he's got, he got a win over a 2014 version of Kawajiri, which was, not far short of a prime Kawajiri, and Kawajiri was a beast. Admittedly, that was down at 145 when they were up at 155, but Guida's coming off a good win over Michael Johnson. He was giving Johnson problems on the feet. Obviously, you have to remember with MMA, the takedown aspect obviously affects the striking, and Michael was worrying about the takedown, but he landed some bombs on Michael on the feet, and just out-hustled him. A typical Clay Guida performance. So, based on the current line, I'm going to go with Guida. He's sitting at like plus 150. Now, you might want to save this fight or plus 140 you can get. You might want to save this fight for live bet because Guida probably is going to lose round one. Where this fight potentially swings is if he can make Mark work, if Mark slows down again. Now, Guida will put up a higher pace than Austin Hubbard. So if there is a weakness there with Mark's cardio, then, Guida will exploit it as long as he can avoid being just held down for the first couple of rounds. So based on the odds the way they are, I'm going to go with Guida. He's been in there with everyone. Experienced guy. Mark's, he's new to MMA. Let's be real. So I'll go with Guida at them odds, but I am reliant on someone gassing, and I don't love betting someone when I'm hoping the opponent slows down. But it is what it is. Guida's made a career out of winning fights that way. Main event is Kelvin Gastelum taking on Jared Cannonier. So 5 rounds. Kelvin sitting at plus 130 to plus 140 territory, which I don't know. I don't know if that's a little bit wide. He's very durable, Kelvin. He fights out of a southpaw stance as well. Now we know Jared likes working the calf kicks. Not to say he can't throw them, because Jared will switch stances. He will fight out of the southpaw stance as well as the orthodox, but he is. You probably will see him more fighting in an orthodox stance, but he is comfortable at southpaw as well. They're two tough guys. It's going to be played out on the feet. Kelvin's going to have the speed advantage. Power, probably you have to give that to Jared, but Kelvin can crack. I think this is going to be a close competitive fight. I don't have a strong read on how it's going to look. Kelvin's coming off a bit of a one-sided loss to Robert Whittaker. Jared coming off a loss to Robert Whittaker as well, which was, I guess it was pretty one-sided as well. He might have hurt Whittaker towards the end of round 3, but both lost pretty comprehensively to Whittaker. So I think it's going to be a close competitive fight. So I'm gonna go with another dog. I'm gonna pick Kelvin here, but it's probably one I'm just going to say for live betting. I'm just going to see how. I just don't have a great vision of how I feel this is going to play out in my head. I wonder if Kelvin might even try to wrestle. He did with Ian Heinisch. He used his wrestling in that fight. So I wonder if it's an area he tries to go to. Jared's takedown defense has definitely improved from where it was at one point, but wouldn't be surprised to see Kelvin test that area. So, when you look at paths to victory, then on the feet, wouldn't shock me if Kelvin wins a striking match here. And there potentially is a grappling path as well. So, when he's sitting at the plus, 130, plus 135, plus 140 area, I think he's the side here. But it is a difficult fight to call. He's at a reach disadvantage. Jared does have that power, but Kelvin's always had a fantastic chin. So I'm going to lean with Kelvin Gastelum here for another underdog pick. God knows how many underdogs I've picked on this card, but it's just one of them cards, guys, where I'll be shocked if we don't have at least a 50-50 split in terms of foes winning and in terms of underdogs winning. It's just one of them lower level cards. It is well matched though, even though I'm saying it's a lower level card for UFC standard. It is well matched. The biggest favourite on the card is William Knight. What can go wrong? What can go wrong if you're betting William Knight as the biggest favourite on a card, eh? I think I've actually picked him, bizarrely enough. All the dogs I've picked, and I've gone with William Knight to win, and he's the biggest favourite on the card. But that shows it is an evenly matched card. So good luck with your bets, guys. Hope you all can make some cash, and I'll be back next week to break down next week's card.